FA Cup shock at Old Trafford, the day Brighton silenced Manchester United. Soft, dramatic music fades in. On a cold afternoon at Old Trafford, with history hanging in the air and expectation heavy on every seat, Manchester United stepped onto the pitch knowing the FA Cup represented hope. Hope in a difficult season, hope of silverware, hope of reminding the world who they are. But football, as it so often does, had a different story to tell. This was the FA Cup third round, the oldest cup competition in world football, a stage where legends are born, and giants sometimes fall. Music rises slightly. Manchester United versus Brighton and Hove Albion. On paper, a familiar Premier League matchup. In reality, a test of belief, discipline, and hunger. Brighton arrived at Old Trafford with no fear, no reputation to protect, only ambition. And from the opening minutes, it showed. Pause. The crowd had barely settled when the warning signs appeared. Brighton pressed aggressively. They moved the ball quickly. They refused to sit back. And then, the breakthrough came. A defensive lapse from United, a moment of hesitation, and Brighton punished it. Brian Gruda found space. Time slowed. He struck with confidence. The ball hit the net. Brighton led at Old Trafford. Silence swept through the stadium. Low ambient crowd, sound imagined. For Manchester United supporters, it was disbelief. For Brighton fans, it was belief turning into reality. United tried to respond. They pushed forward. They searched for rhythm. But something was missing. The passes lacked sharpness. The movement lacked conviction. The urgency felt forced rather than natural. Brighton, meanwhile, looked comfortable, organized, calm, a team that knew exactly why they were there. Music, subtle, tense. As the first half closed, frustration grew. United had possession, but Brighton had control. And then came the second half. If United hoped to reset, Brighton had other plans. Beat. Once again, it was Brighton who struck. Danny Welbeck, a former Manchester United player, back at the ground where his journey began. Football has a sense of irony. Welbeck rose, connected cleanly, and scored. 2-0. Old Trafford was stunned. Short pause. For Brighton, it was history unfolding. For United, it was a nightmare deepening. 2 goals down. FA Cup dreams fading. But football is never finished until the final whistle. Music shifts, hint of hope. United pushed everything forward. They introduced fresh legs. They raised the tempo. The crowd responded. Then came the lifeline. A corner swung in, a leap above defenders. Benjamin Šeško rose highest. Goal, 2-1. Old Trafford erupted. Belief returned. Crowd energy imagined. For a brief moment, it felt like one of those nights. The kind United fans have seen before. Late drama, heroic comebacks. Brighton were under pressure. The noise was deafening. But then, another turning point. Music cuts slightly darker. A reckless challenge. A second yellow card. Manchester United were down to 10 men. Momentum disappeared instantly. The task became harder. The spaces closed. The clock kept ticking. Brighton sensed it. They slowed the game. They broke up play. They stayed disciplined. Pause. As the minutes passed, United pushed, but Brighton resisted. Every clearance felt like a victory. Every tackle, a statement. And then, the final whistle. Music fades into reflective tone. Brighton had done it. A historic FA Cup victory at Old Trafford, their first ever. For Manchester United, another painful chapter in a turbulent season. Eliminated in the third round, at home, in front of their fans. Soft, reflective pause. This defeat raised questions. Questions about identity, about consistency, about leadership. Darren Fletcher, standing in as interim manager, watched as another opportunity slipped away. His tenure had promised balance, structure, a fresh approach. But results speak louder than plans, and this result spoke volumes. Music gentle, nostalgic. In the stands, familiar faces watched on. Sir Alex Ferguson, Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt. Legends of a golden era. Men who knew what it meant to fight, to dominate, to win. Their presence was a reminder of standards, of history, of expectations. Pause. But football moves forward, and on this day, Brighton were the better team. They showed courage, they showed discipline, they showed belief. Everything the FA Cup represents.